Yahweh spoke to Moshe about leprosy, and now unto fluxes and the like. Vayikra, Leviticus chapter 15. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, saying,
Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, when any man be having a flux out of his flesh, because of his flux he is unclean. And this shall be his uncleanness in his flux, whether his flesh run with his flux, or his flesh be stopped from his flux. It is his uncleanness. Every bed whereon the one having a flux lieth shall be unclean, and everything whereon he sitteth shall be unclean. And whosoever toucheth his bed shall wash his clothes, and wash himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And he that sitteth on anything whereon the one having a flux sat shall wash his clothes, and wash himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And he that toucheth the flesh of the one having a flux shall wash his clothes, and wash himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And if the one having a flux spit upon him that is clean, then he shall wash his clothes, and wash himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And whatsoever saddle the one having a flux rideth upon shall be unclean, and whosoever toucheth anything that was under him shall be unclean until the even. And he that beareth those things shall wash his clothes, and wash himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And whomsoever the one having a flux toucheth, without having rinsed his hands in water, he shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And the earthen vessel which the one having a flux toucheth shall be broken, and every vessel of wood shall be rinsed in water. And when the one having a flux is cleansed of his flux, then he shall number to himself 7 days for his cleansing, and wash his clothes, and he shall wash his flesh in running water, and shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take to him 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, and come before Yahweh to the door of the tent of appointment, and give them to the priest. And the priest shall offer them, the one for a sin offering, and the other for an ascending offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him before Yahweh for his flux. And if any man's seed of copulation go out from him, then he shall wash all his flesh in water, and be unclean until the even. And every garment and every skin which the seed of copulation is on shall be washed with water, and be unclean until the even. The woman also with whom a man shall lie with seed of copulation, they shall both wash themselves in water, and be unclean until the even. And if a woman be having a flux, and her flux in her flesh be blood, she shall be in her impurity 7 days. And whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the even. And everything that she lieth upon in her impurity shall be unclean. Everything also that she sitteth upon shall be unclean. And whosoever toucheth her bed shall wash his clothes, and wash himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And whosoever toucheth anything that she sitteth upon shall wash his clothes, and wash himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And if it be on the bed, or on anything whereon she sitteth, when he toucheth it, he shall be unclean until the even. And if any man lie with her, and her impurity be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and every bed whereon he lieth shall be unclean. And if any woman have a flux of her blood many days, not in the time of her impurity, or if she have a flux beyond the time of her impurity, all the days of the flux of her uncleanness, she shall be as in the days of her impurity. She is unclean. Every bed whereon she lieth all the days of her flux shall be to her as the bed of her impurity, and everything whereon she sitteth shall be unclean, as the uncleanness of her impurity. And whosoever toucheth those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes, and wash himself in water, and be unclean until the even. But if she be cleansed of her flux, then she shall number to herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. And on the 8th day she shall take to her 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, and bring them to the priest, to the door of the tent of appointment. And the priest shall offer the one for a sin offering, and the other for an ascending offering, and the priest shall make atonement for her before Yahweh for the flux of her uncleanness. Thus shall ye separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness, that they die not in their uncleanness, when they defile my tabernacle that is in the midst of them.
This is the law of the one having a flux, and of him whose seed of copulation goeth from him, so that he is unclean thereby, and of her that is sick with her impurity, and of the one having a flux, of the man, and of the woman, and of him that lieth with her that is unclean.